Welcome to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast with Eric Tashlein from Connecticut Capital. In this podcast, we help business owners and successful professionals plan for better wealth outcomes. Join us for this journey where we explore ways to help you identify better wealth decisions to help you achieve an unfettered life. It's time to ask yourself, what do you want more of?
Hello and welcome to Unfettered Wealth with Eric Tashlein. Today we're talking about current conditions, which, boy, that's a scary box to open, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hi, Eric.
All right. So we're talking about current conditions. And as we record this, we are affected by coronavirus. We are affected by market conditions. We are affected by the fact that I'm working from home and so is my wife. And well, we did that for a number of years, but we've had a break over the past, I think, 7 years. We've been working in separate areas, and now we're both together, and she constantly wants to clean my office.
So that's it sounds like my house, basically. I am, just for my own clients' information, I am the only one at the office. My business partner, Brian, is at home in Southbury living the monk life. And, Karen and Jill are at their houses as well. But it's worked surprisingly well, and we're communicating effectively. So I'm happy to be on here with you today.
Yeah, me too. And that's so funny because maybe we should just change the opening of this podcast to that. Living the monk life. I like that phrase.
Right.
If I could be in a robe right now and just flip-flops or sandals, that'd be just fine with me too. So we're going to be talking about kind of the market, and that's on, well, a lot of people's minds right now. So what are we going to be talking about specifically today, Eric?
Sure. So today, I wanted to speak about some of the conversations we've been having with clients. From a market standpoint, I mean, I think everybody's aware, we're in what's considered a bear market at this point. Multiple indexes are down more than 20% and needs to hold for more than 2 months. So I know we're getting towards that date, and I'm ever hopeful that things will turn around quickly, but we'll find out in a few weeks. So that in terms of the markets, basically, multiple things have occurred here. The virus came out in January. It's now spread to the United States. Obviously, our state's in somewhat of a lockdown. And I think that's occurred now in almost half of the states in the country, and it'll probably continue to be enforced further, which I think is a good thing, right? We want to level this off and then move on ultimately with our lives. But, the common questions I get are, what do I do now? And so when we're speaking to clients, every day, it's, just try to limit your exposure to some of the financial news and some of the social media, right? The fear mongering.
Yeah. It is. I'm sorry, but here's the thing. For all of our listeners, you are very intelligent. You know that the news channel's jobs are to sell advertising space, just like any other channel out there, right? They're not, as nice of people as they probably are, they're not in it to inform us and make us feel better. They're there to get us to watch their channel, and the advertisers get to pay them, to show us their commercials. And so bottom line is that they're going to make the titles a little more scary, in my opinion, at least. They're going to make the titles a little more eye-grabbing and clickbaity, if that's, a term you want to use. And it's just, Eric, it bothers me. It really bugs the snot out of me because it's one of those things where, I kind of joke with my kids. I told them, I said, you've got to be careful of what you're watching because it is true clickbait. It used to be, you'd be turning on the TV at 4:00 and the little news snippet would come on, wanting you to watch later on in the evening, and they'd say 10 things in your refrigerator that can kill you tonight at 10 o'clock. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. And now I have to wait till 10 o'clock. I can't go in my fridge because 10 things in there are going to kill me. It's just that kind of stuff that is going on right now. And especially depending on which channel you listen to, they're going to tell you one thing you want to hear or one thing you don't want to hear. And it just doesn't seem to be just straight truth. So I appreciate the time that you're putting in to do this. And I know that you have been putting in a ton of time calling all of your individual clients and reaching out to them by email or whatever their best communication is. How has that been going? Let me ask you that before we move on.
Yeah, I would say it's going well. I mean, I think everybody appreciates the call. We love our clients, obviously. Oftentimes it's like, how are you doing? They're more concerned sometimes about us than they are about themselves. So,
That's
we
nice.
appreciate
Yeah.
everybody that we work with. Yeah, so I think overall, thankfully, everybody's healthy. Nobody's been directly impacted. It sounds like there was a situation where there was a relative that was impacted by the virus. So we're sensitive to that, and in the hope that everybody can get through this time healthy. I would say the conversations have been positive. I think when we're working with clients, with many clients, we've run financial plans. And, we've run through in the what if scenarios, some of these volatile situations. And we try to remind clients of that they're going to be okay. We talk about their cash and we talk about their liquidity and bonds and the needs that they're going to have maybe over the next 12 months or so. And I think the biggest thing to do in speaking to clients is just, what does your emergency fund look like? And we help them with that because we usually know how much cash they have, when CDs come in, short-term bonds when they come due, and also remind them that, in many cases they have dividends that, if their income is reduced for some reason, if their salary is lowered or if they're laid off, there's dividends that they can tap into. So I think they appreciate the guidance at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of believe in a multiple streams of income scenario, so that they have those options for liquidity. And so I would assume a lot of those conversations go well because especially a lot of them, I'm sure, needing to be reminded about the dividends, that those can be changed from maybe being reinvested to, what you can actually take that, and use that as part of your cash flow.
No, absolutely. And then, even on the stock conversations, we try to go through and say, listen, here are some of the stocks you own. And it's stocks they recognize that, will be around probably for another 100 years. Yeah. And so I think that helps them. I think that alleviates some of the anxiety, for sure.
Good. That's great. So as far as an emergency fund, and I know we've spoken briefly about this on another podcast, what do you recommend normally for an emergency fund? How many months?
Well, I would say 6 to 12 months is good. I would say, I know I've seen 90 days, but I think in a situation like this, I think you need more than that. And thankfully, that seems to be the case with most of our clients.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great reminder, right? I mean, if anybody's out there saying that 90 days or 3 months is worth, that's plenty. Take a look at what this situation is. This has already been going on for well over a month, probably close to 2 months at this point. Maybe each person out there listening has not been directly affected for 2 months, but there's a possibility that it's going to go on a few more months. So it's nice to know. And I talked to my kids probably a month ago and said, just see what's coming down the pipe, because I pay a lot more attention to the financials than they do because they're young. And, my daughter's 20, she turns 21 this year. My son's 23. And so I'm a little bit more in tune with the financials. I just told him, hey, as your father, I love you. You take my advice or don't. It's up to you at this point. You're adults, but here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm thinking. Tighten your belts a little bit, put off that car purchase for a little while. My daughter needs a new car, and we've talked about that. And I said, you put it off for just a couple months because your car's still running fine. But just to see what's going on, to make sure that you're safe with your work and everything else. And she's so happy that she did that because now she's going to get a better deal on a car because car dealers are going to be looking to recoup some things and sell some cars quickly. So she'll get some better deals and just kind of being smart with that money and the money she has on hand. She's a great saver anyway. She's got quite a bit saved up for a car, but
that's good to hear.
It's fun to see that. Yeah, it's fun to see that when you do properly plan, that you can breathe that sigh of relief. So that's great. How do you help your clients kind of figure out what they need on a yearly basis, kind of doing their annual budget?
Yeah, no, sure. And I think that's timely, right? We all have some extra, in theory, we all have extra time on our hands. Yeah. And going through the bills over the past year, I mean, we certainly have, sheets we send clients when they ask for them. But I think just going through the bills over the past year, I'm sure people, I know when we've gone through our bills for last year, like, oh my gosh, we really shouldn't have bought that silly thing, and have some regrets on things you purchased. But, what bills are recurring this year? And, as an example, I was watching sports on TV last night. I was watching year-old hockey and year-old basketball on a sports cable channel that I'm paying for. And I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense. So, we're in the process of kind of going through cable and gym memberships and so forth. I mean, we are trying to support our local small businesses as much as possible. I know my wife has kept a gym membership up and probably will for the next month or so. But, those are things that are on the chopping block if this thing continues to run a little further.
Yeah, it's so funny that you bring that up. We had a tamale making party. I know that sounds strange, but my wife is an amazing cook. And so we had a bunch of friends over, and she was teaching people how to make tamales, and we made dozens and dozens. We actually did it as a fundraiser, and it was just wonderful. But we were watching movies while we were doing this, and somebody brought up they wanted to watch The Princess Bride, which is a fantastic movie. However, we couldn't find it anywhere except for on, I think it was on HBO or one of the channels that you have to pay for, right? So you get the 2-week free trial or whatever, or 1 week free trial or whatever it was. So we signed up for it to watch the movie. We watched the movie, and then there was a couple other shows that we were going to watch, so we didn't mind paying for it for a month. That was 8 months ago. I canceled it last week because we forgot about it. So we were paying $10 a month for I think a total of 9 extra months. So there's $90 that just gone for no reason. Oh,
you're not alone.
Yeah, those little subscriptions and things, they really do add up.
Yeah, no, so for sure. And then, bigger picture items, like if you have a mortgage, and, rates are lower. I mean, a 30-year mortgage is probably in the 3.5, 3.75 range right now, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And, so if your job situation is still solid, there's those opportunities to lower some of your outflows.
Yeah.
And, I think some other things too. I mean, with clients, we'll get them caught up. But, for folks that are listening, you want to be aware of, there's new federal laws, there's new benefits, there's new state benefits, there's employer benefits that you may have through your company that are available to you. And, since you have some extra time, it's not a bad idea to kind of become aware of those if something happened into your situation.
Great point.
As a business owner, I think it's a great time, right? It's almost like everybody does year-end planning for the business, right? And so now's a great time to look at your business objectively and say, is this business really built for all environments? What are some things system-wise that need to be worked on? What are some of the services you're paying for that maybe you're not utilizing, or maybe you shop your insurance? So I think in terms of turning lemons, we're all about turning lemons into lemonade, right? I think reviewing providers, reassessing makes some sense during this period for sure.
Yeah, definitely. What are some examples?
Well, I would say for sure on the insurances, I did reach out to my property and casualty person and say, hey, listen, I know you're busy, but, can you just take a look and shop within your carriers, the benefits that we offer, and some of the basic risk insurances that we have and so forth. And there were some other items. As an example, I'm the only one here at the office, and we have water delivery, every month, and it was starting to pile up.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, I asked Karen from my office, like, Karen, could you just reach out to them and just stop this month's delivery? It's overflowing here.
Yeah, it's starting to look like you're getting ready for the zombie apocalypse, and that's not quite here yet. However, it could be.
So, along that line, so in terms of being optimistic on this, I am just blown away. We have a friend whose dad is an epidemiologist, and he was just amazed, and I'm amazed. I'm really proud of the global effort, right, on vaccines. I mean, some of these zombie movies will say the vaccine will cause it, and but just seeing 50 or more companies with hopefully some real viable solutions, and that's really heartening. So you triggered that in my mind. And the other thing too, I have to say, is in terms of being optimistic, I mean, you see companies like Ford and GM and Tesla, and all these companies really working on providing proper protective gear for our doctors and everything. I read that the other day. I was just so proud to be an American and knowing the types of people we have working on this problem. I was really proud of all those folks.
Yeah, it really harkened back to World War II, right? I mean, that's, you know, I read a lot of history when I was younger, and mainly because I was forced to in high school. But, you know, but that was one thing that really stuck out in my mind, is that so many factories, so many companies switched what they were doing for the war effort. They switched what they were creating. They switched the parts they were making, all for the war effort. And this is the same thing. This is a war on a global scale against something that is a threat to all humanity, not just one specific country, not one specific type of people. This is really affecting everyone. And I'm same thing. It was seriously a swelling of pride to hear about these companies stepping up. And even the gentleman, and I don't know the entire story, but even the gentleman that there was a respirator part. I don't know if you heard about that, but there was a part for the respirators that they couldn't get. And from the manufacturer, they couldn't get any more of them. And a gentleman stepped up and said, well, let me take a look at it, took it, and within a few hours had a copy of it made on his own 3D printer and started cranking them out. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, so I mean, these are people that are just stepping up and saying, this is what I can do to help out. So yeah, I'm very, as much gloom and doom as there is in the news and the media. And I love your first point of this entire podcast. Just turn it off for a while, right? Don't saturate yourself with that kind of talk. There are so many other positive things out there, and that's what I'm seeing. And so, yeah, it's definitely a positive thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of portfolio, in terms of, lemons into lemonade, I would definitely, first and foremost, you should be speaking to your financial advisor before making any hasty decisions during this period. And one thing that the advisors can help you with certainly is tax management. And so I'll give you an example. So I won't even use their names, but let's say that you own stock in the home improvement space. And let's say that stock is down $5,000. What you can consider doing is, and I know your advisor should be doing, is there an alternative competitor to that company in the market where you could sell the stock that's down $5,000, buy the competitor, and when that competitor, hopefully in the future comes up, and let's say it gains $5,000 and you sell it, you end up zeroing out your tax bill. Which is huge.
Oh,
I mean, so on an annual basis, we do tax management all the time. And what we find is if you can help to zero out taxes for the client at the end of the year, they're thrilled. The accountant's happy, and I think it's an underutilized asset in terms of portfolio management.
Wow, that's I've never really thought about it that way. So that is a great idea.
Yeah, so it just makes sense. So it's easier to do it, with individual stocks, oftentimes versus a mutual fund, and we'll get into that in a minute. In terms of some of the considerations going forward, in terms of how do you manage taxes better or manage your portfolio better, it's just some things to think about. If for an example, if you have mutual funds and they're down, maybe when things clear up a little bit, I would speak to an advisor about, is that the best way to position my money from a tax standpoint? This year, you will probably see that even with some of your mutual funds declining, you may get hit with a tax bill. And that's just because they're just not an efficient vehicle. They're great from a professional management standpoint, and they hold many companies, so it's good from that standpoint. But tax-wise, they're not really great. And so what you're seeing now is mutual fund managers forced to sell at high volume during a time when people aren't buying. And that can create a tax bill. So just something to be aware of. Maybe not now. Maybe, again, no drastic changes until you speak to your advisors. But I think on a go-forward basis, there's better alternatives for folks, especially if you have enough money to justify owning individual stocks and bonds.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
So some of the other things that are coming up with clients are, we have some that are they're getting to the point where they're thinking about retiring, but they can continue working. And so we've been having that conversation. So, when retirement's looming, do they continue to work for another year? And I don't think it's a bad option if you have it. Certainly the big thing is to allow your stocks to recover. And if that means working a little bit longer, it's okay. I mean, I think it's a good decision for certain people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing that's coming up too, I just want to remind people, I think in the midst of this, college funds tend to get almost forgotten. They're last in the line of everybody's investments. But I would just be aware of, if you have a teenager, college is coming quickly, just be aware of that allocation. Just make sure that you have enough money set aside for when those kids start going to college, or have other options to be able to pay for college once they eventually go back to school and hopefully are attending the university instead of being home online.
Yeah, exactly. The online stuff is amazing to me. I mean, as far as the technological abilities, it's fantastic. But at the same time, there is so much to be said for being in a classroom, in a hall, whatever. And also, obviously, the personal touch of being able to be with your friends and learning in that capacity. I think that's what's truly missing, is that kind of iron sharpening iron, or getting together for study time and all that. In a virtual world, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's still being accomplished. So that's a good thing. But I love the fact that you don't want to lose sight of that, because I think all of us as parents want to get our kids back out of the house and go to school.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife actually helps out on a national basis, in a national sorority. And I know the kids are really missing each other across the nation. So hopefully we'll get back online soon here. So some of the other topics of discussions are, not to be negative, where are your documents? Right? If something happens to you or you become ill, I think it's a good idea just to let your loved ones know, hey, these are where my documents are, healthcare proxies and wills and so forth. Every year we'll run into a situation. Sometimes it's a 401k participant where they're still naming ex-spouses as beneficiaries. So I think, just a reminder to just make sure everything's in order while you have some time to look at it.
Yeah, that could be awkward. Especially if there's a new spouse. Just saying.
Exactly. And then the other thing too is, and this is something that can be done through emails and phone conferences, is if you have your ducks in a row, maybe you consider updating your financial plan or doing a financial plan. I think in an environment where, anxiety is being created, I think having clarity when it comes to your finances is a great thing. And it's just something to think about, whether it's now or as things clear up. I think it's very empowering for most people.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Is there anything else that we need to talk about today as far as kind of things that you wanted to touch on?
I would say that's it. I would say, if you are a client, we are here for you. Definitely give us a call, send us an email. We're happy to answer any further questions. I know we've reached out to almost everyone. If you're not a client, I would encourage you to ask some of these questions to your advisor, or if you don't have an advice relationship that you're confident in, we are here for you. You can certainly go to our website, ConnecticutCapital.com. There's a tab to create a meeting and we can have a discussion. The number here is 877-1520. We're in Milford, Connecticut. So, we're happy to speak to folks that just have some questions, or if they're uncertain about certain things that we've addressed today.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic, Eric. Thank you so much for your time today. And I appreciate you being in the office, even though you're all by yourself with all that water.
Exactly.
All right. And I want to thank you, the listener, for listening to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast with Eric Tashlein. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Eric comes out with the new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Connecticut Capital Management Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Connecticut Capital. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. Content should not be construed as personalized investment, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your advisor, attorney, or tax advisor in regards to your individual situation. Eric Tashlein is an investment advisory representative of Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, and Connecticut Benefits Group, LLC are not affiliated.
Eric Tashlein is a certified financial planner professional and founding principal of Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, 2 Schooner Lane, Suites 1-12 in Milford. He can be reached at 203-877-1520 or through www.connecticutcapital.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as personalized investment advice or legal tax advice. Please consult your advisor, attorney, tax advisor. Eric is an investment advisor representative of Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, and Connecticut Benefit Group, LLC are not affiliated.